I'm very proud right now to be introducing what I consider to be my right-hand person, who happens to be sitting on the right hand of me, Justin Kelly. And he is our organizing director. Justin started with us in the very beginning, managing our youth program, and he has done an incredible job of managing the entire organizing program of the Grassroots Democrats HQ. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, thank you, Tamara. Thank you all for being here. So excited to see so many of you. And I have the pleasure and honor to introduce our first special guest tonight. Actually, my former congressman in the district that I grew up in the first ever campaign that I worked on when I first got into politics. So I am very excited and honored to introduce Representative Mike Levin from California's 49th District. Thank you, Congressman, for being here with us.
Well, thank you so much, Justin. I am so proud of you for all your great work with GDHQ. And it's just an honor to be with everybody. You know, we just had an opportunity to celebrate the Thanksgiving holiday with our families and our loved ones. And despite all the difficulties and the challenges that we face, whether here in Washington, D.C. or around the country or around the world, I am truly thankful for everybody on this Zoom. Your participation, your activism, your engagement is amazing, and it's inspiring. And I know when I speak for my colleague Derek Tran, you're going to be hearing from the amazing Christine Pelosi that you're going to be hearing from, that we can't do it without you. We can't do it without owning the ground, without the grassroots making the calls, knocking on the doors, really making it happen. That is the engine of our movement and of our politics. And it gives me great hope, despite it all, despite the difficulties that we've faced, despite the bad headlines that we read, that we are going to prevail in the end. Let me also say a huge thanks to my campaign team. Many of you know Adam Berkowitz, our campaign manager from all the way back in 2017 when we won a red to blue seat. Daryl Issa was there at the time, and he skipped town. So it might be he's skipping town again. I don't know if he's going to Texas or not. I tried to track him down on the floor, Justin. I couldn't find him on the floor. And then he ran from Manu Raju of CNN after. I did see that video. But huge thanks to Adam Berkowitz for being there from day one, and to our entire campaign team as well. I tell my team that we've always got to make time for Tamara and for GDHQ, because aside from my own campaign team, I know that you're actually doing the work. I know that you're doing the work, all across the country, and that's how we win. And speaking of that, it's way too early right now. But what I can tell you is that these numbers in Tennessee 7 are pretty encouraging. Again, it's early, but the Nashville numbers in particular, we know that Bain had to perform 22 points ahead. And in Nashville so far, she's at 26 points ahead. It's going to come down to election day, and who turned out today. So I hope that we had a great showing today, and we're going to find out, when we wake up in the morning. But this is how we win, by owning the ground. And of course, we needed to have a great night. A little less than a month ago, November 4th. And because of everybody here, we had an amazing night, a truly amazing night. Because when Democrats and like-minded voters actually vote, we win. We win, and we win big. If you look at my dear friends and former colleagues in the House class of 2018 with me, Abby Spanberger, Mikey Sherrill, we all were elected in that huge wave election in 2018. And I'm so proud of them to now be the governors of Virginia and New Jersey. You look at Mondami, you look at the Virginia State House, you look at the judges in Pennsylvania, and of course, you look at Prop 50, where we seriously overperformed all the expectations. We overperformed everywhere. And, what can I say? I really, I think people understand the stakes. I think people understand the urgency and the importance. And for those that I've known since that first race in 2018, what I have said every single 2 years that I've run is I have said that this election cycle is the most important election that we've ever had. I think Tamara has heard me say it like a zillion times. but I am here to tell you all that this coming election, a year from now, is the most important election in the history of the country. Now, why is that? Well, for one reason, it could genuinely determine whether we have subsequent legitimate elections. This is not a drill. This is reality. We have to win. We have to hold this administration to account. We have to restore the basic checks and balances that the framers intended. And we know that a lot of people are getting very wealthy with this president and with this MAGA group that he has surrounded himself with. The billionaires are getting fabulously wealthy, and they're going to do everything possible to stay in power using whatever means necessary. They're going to pull every punch. They're going to try to do every single thing they can to disenfranchise people, to intimidate people, to slow down the elections process, to damage the elections process. And Trump, let's not forget, is stockpiling that we know of hundreds of millions in campaign money. It wouldn't surprise me if there's a lot that we don't know about from God knows where. And we have to assume they're going to have an unlimited amount of resources to use against us. And I truly believe that the only way we will prevail against them is if we blow them out across the board. If we own the ground and we make 2018 look like an appetizer. And now we're going to serve the main course. And the main course is going to be a huge win in 2026. And every single one of us incumbents, we have to win by as large a margin as we possibly can. We have to pick up as many seats as we possibly can to win back the House. It's not going to be easy to do just because there are a lot fewer truly competitive seats than there were. So we have to make sure that folks like Derek Tran win their races, that Adam Gray wins his race, that whoever prevails in the primary against David Valadao and against whoever is running in the 48th district, the ISA district, that they prevail. And then across the country where we have great candidates running, as soon as the dust settles on all the redistricting shenanigans going on, we need to focus and win everywhere. And the Senate is certainly, not going to be easy, but I think we can win the Senate also. And we ought to damn well try everywhere to win the Senate. We just need huge margins. We need huge victories. That's how we can best fight back against the recklessness and the lawlessness that we are seeing every single day. When we have real accountability, when we have Hakeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, Pete Aguilar leading the House of Representatives, Jamie Raskin leading the Judiciary Committee, Robert Garcia leading the Oversight Committee, and then folks like me on the Appropriations Committee standing up to this administration, making sure that Congress has the power of the purse and doesn't yield to a reckless, lawless administration. So we're going to do it with your help. Failure is not an option. So thank you for everything that you have done, and thank you in advance for everything that you're about to do. We are all in this together, and with that, I will turn it back over to Tamara.
Fantastic. So thank you so much. I can't imagine what it would have been like for the Grassroots Democrats HQ to work with anyone except you in your district. When you won, it was an incredible honor because we were with you on that very first election, and we have been with you ever since, and we will continue to be helping you to win Congress back. It is an incredible honor to work with you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. You are amazing.
We love you, Tamara. Thank you.
Okay, so this is what's going to happen. Davis, we are changing our program a little bit here. We're going to, let me just do this 1 second. Fantastic. So I am going to introduce Davis Hahn. No, wait, sorry. We're basically redirecting some things. Just a few things changed. Great, actually. Just give me a second. Davis, I need your help so that we can be putting on the actual slides, and we're going to move on directly to the slides. At any moment when we see Representative Tran come into this Zoom, I'm just going to like do that thing where I sidestep to the side and we introduce him so that he can speak. We're going to move on right now to the impact that we all made together. And when I say that, I really do mean we. We together made a huge impact in 2025. Sorry, wait.
Davis, can you move to the next
Yeah,
slide?
the next one. Fantastic. As you can see, we made a huge leap in the programming this year. We have never, as a Grassroots Democrats HQ, I shouldn't say never, because back during the Stop the Recall, we did do work in Los Angeles. But generally, you don't see us doing work in Los Angeles. When we were called upon to jump into Prop 50, we did it. And here we have the incredible Speaker Emerita Pelosi, who was here at the Garden HQ, slamming the entire backyard was filled with volunteers. It was incredible. The next slide. We began this 2025 year as we expected to. We were working on the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. During that race, we made 1,172,151 voter contacts. We ensured that Wisconsin's judge was elected. We won. Do you want to tell us a little bit about our stats? Because you were doing that with me.
Absolutely. So we made overall in our work in Wisconsin from, I believe we started in February of 2025 all the way through the election in April, over 1.1 million voter contacts that consisted of over 886,000 phone calls. We were running phone banks 4 or 5 times a week, every week with the Wisconsin Democratic Party. We also ran a youth program that we do, which we'll get into in a little bit, where we had students who we paid for a training program. They volunteered their time each week for 5 hours calling young voters in Wisconsin. That program, we were able to make over 253,000 voter contacts to young adult voters in Wisconsin. And then additionally, with our postcarding program for volunteers out of state and our volunteers here in Los Angeles, we were able to send 32,800 postcards directly into Wisconsin.
And we are proud that Judge Susan Crawford is now on the Supreme Court in the state of Wisconsin. And 2 years ago, we helped ensure that Judge Protasevich, which I can still say her name, came in. When we were called upon, we will all come together again for the Wisconsin Supreme Court. The next slide. Then we knew what was coming next. What was coming next was Virginia. This is something that the Grassroots Democrats HQ, as the team that we were even before we were at headquarters, and we were started with what was called Code Blue, if many of you were working with us back then. And we started working in Virginia. And we knew that Virginia was the pregame to the Super Bowl that happens with the elections every year for Congress. Before that, there is this little tiny election that happens in Virginia that takes a huge impact into the entire country. And this time, we were not just working on the House of Delegates races, we were working on the top ticket as well. What did we do in Virginia?
Yeah, we made over 695,000 voter contacts in Virginia. We were running since the beginning of the campaign when we started in April, all the way through Election Day. We were running 6 of their national phone banks every single week. One of those being specifically a young Dem to young voter phone bank. We made over almost 500,000 phone calls into the state for, like Tamara mentioned, the top of the ticket for Abigail Spanberger, all the statewide candidates, all the way down to all the different targeted House of Delegates races that we helped to flip and defend. We also gave 2 of our Young Dem Organized for Democracy training cohorts, 50 students in the summer, 50 students in the fall. We paid them for training. They volunteered their time to call young voters. They made over 185,000 phone calls to young voters in Virginia through the summer and the fall programs. And again, through all of our postcarding efforts too, we were able to send 11,000 postcards directly into the state as well for the Spanberger campaign.
But I want to tell you a little bit more about Virginia because it really was an incredible election. We normally start with the House of Delegates and the state Senate. This time we actually jumped in early. We knew that the governor's race was going to be incredibly important. So the Grassroots Democrats HQ didn't just start off later in the year, but we started off in that January time. We helped in the House of Delegates to hold on to 4 incumbents that we knew that we had to hold on to. And nobody imagined that out of the other 14 races that we were working on to flip, that 13 of them were going to flip. It was an incredible action that we took in Virginia. And I want you all to know that that momentum started with everything that this activist movement started back in that 2017 time. And we kept going and rolling and rolling and rolling. And we started off the year strong. First, we won in Wisconsin, and then we won in Virginia. The next slide. Now, what comes next? Nobody thought that Prop 50 was even a possibility. I know I didn't think about it. And when the time came and the Grassroots Democrats HQ's board was talking about it, there was a moment. It wasn't a long moment, but there was a moment when our board said, you know what, Tamara? You know what, Justin? Maybe we shouldn't be doing so much in Virginia if we have to take on California as well, because we really don't have the ability to do all of that. So we did go to our friends in Virginia, and we had weekly meetings with them. And we said, you know, we might need to pull out because we can't do as much work. And literally, it made them panic. I won't say that it lasted very long, but we saw the look on the team's face that we were talking about it. And we went back to our board and we said, nope, that isn't who the Grassroots Democrats HQ is. We have been working in Virginia since that 2017 race. We are loyal activists. And when you start doing something, you do not finish. So we dug deep. We kept on with everything that we were doing in Virginia. And we then jumped fully into Prop 50 in California. That's 1,351,581 voter contacts. We did 1.3 million phone banks. We were working lockstep with the California Democratic Party. I want to say that this was one of the most incredibly effective races that I've seen in the time that I've been doing this work. It hasn't been that long, everyone. It's only been since 2016. Many of you have been doing this much, much longer than I have. But what I will tell you is what the California Democratic Party did alongside the Prop 50, alongside labor, alongside activist groups was absolutely incredible. And what was even more incredible is that when we started off with the year, everybody was out there protesting. There was a lot of people out there in the streets protesting. And we saw many of those people that were marching get active in California, and they started knocking on doors, making phone calls, writing the postcards, and doing the work that we needed. In total, what did we do?
We made 1.3 million voter contacts into California. Of those 1.3 million phone calls, and Tamara, I'm actually going to pause for a second because Christine Pelosi has a very special guest for us on the line.
Fantastic. We are going to take, Davis, would you mind doing me a favor and take this off the screen? And we're going to look for, hold on, give us 1 second while I just look for Christine in the room. Okay, and hold on. Add as a spotlight. Fantastic. Hello, Christine. Wait, we need to unmute you. Actually,
I could go from here.
Go ahead.
Hi, everyone.
We want to do a quick introduction of you for 1 moment. Can you please help me?
Yes, absolutely. To introduce Christine.
Yes.
Okay. So hi, I'm Daniela. I'm the digital director.
Okay, is that better?
And
Yes.
I'm so excited to introduce Christine Pelosi, who's a DNC executive committee member.
There we go. Hello, Christine.
Hi, everyone. How are you? It is great to be with you live. I'm wearing my favorite post-election t-shirt called The Cure, you know, the band. We didn't need to cure in Prop 50 because we did so well. But it is wonderful to be with all of you. We thank the Grassroots Dems over and over and over again, and all of you for what you do. It is my pleasure to introduce our fearless leader via telephone, the forever speaker and hopefully future colleague of Afton Bain, Nancy Pelosi.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for all that you have been doing. grassroots Dems headquarters, all the grassroots folks around the country. Thank you for making the difference. This is a run. Hopefully we'll have a big victory tonight, but whatever it is, it will be a success because we'll have won the campaign and the election. Winning the campaign is important because it takes us to the next step. The Republicans are taking the heat that you are applying to them by all the grassroots activists. Every step you take, every door you knock, every text you send, all of it. And I know that you subscribe to my 3 no's. No wasted time, no underutilized resources, and no regrets the day after the election. If only we could have done more. So let's mobilize, let's message, let's get out there and get the job done. She's a fantastic, we have a fantastic candidate, and this race is making a big difference across the country. Hopefully tonight it will be a big victory as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We don't agonize, we organize. Thank you all. Thank you, Christine. Bye-bye.
Everyone's cheering at you. You're getting a nice wave from the room.
Can anybody see me?
Yeah, they can all see you. Bye-bye, Mom. Okay, we love you.
Love you, bye.
Okay, so that was Mom, everyone, going between activities on the Hill. And she would have loved to hear Mike Levin earlier saying own the ground, because she's always been saying that. And let me just also say, I was telling Tamara when we were in the waiting room earlier, when I got my invitation for tonight, it said, you are being welcomed to our thank you Zoom because you volunteered in Wisconsin. And I thought, no, that was last year. But no, it was this year. It's been a very long year of activism, and we have been there together with each other every step of the way. It took a longer time for some people to get back up, kind of knock the cobwebs and shock off and get to work. But whenever you came, whether it was you were with our first post-election Zoom last November, or whether you joined us with Save Our Healthcare the first weekend in January before MLK's birthday, or whether you came on for Prop 50, or whether you just came in for Afton in Tennessee, everything has made a difference. And I would also just say, to remind everyone, that in the summer of 2017, when we were fighting in a special election in Georgia, remember Vote Your Ass Off? Well, we lost that race, but we came so close in those special elections in ruby red districts that people knew Democrats had a chance. And a year and a half later, we had Senator Ossoff and we had Congresswoman Lucy McBath and we had Congressman Mike Levin. And from coast to coast, we had the wins that led us to the return of Speaker Pelosi. So remember what we're doing this year. We are going to win the House of Representatives in a year, but it's because we laid the groundwork, starting with the ultimate Tesla takedown of Elon Musk in Wisconsin and going through to tonight, a 22-point Trump win in this district a year ago, and now it's neck and neck. That's because of their awful policies, but it's also because of your activism and your unwillingness to accept unified Republican government as anything but the disgrace that it is, and to tell voters that. And I would just conclude with this thought, because a lot of us were together on Prop 50, and we called a lot of independent voters. We've been calling independent voters what we call no party preference in California voters since January to talk about healthcare. And there are many, many people who have told us, I voted for Trump, or I didn't vote for Harris. And I'm not saying I regret my vote, but I'm voting with the Democrats now because I don't think Donald Trump is fulfilling the promise he made. He's not listening to people like me who gave him a vote last year. And that's why I'm giving a vote to someone else. So the approach that we've taken is very respectful. We're not vote shaming. We're not denigrating people for having given a chance to Donald Trump or given up on voting Democratic last year. Instead, we're saying, look, we respect that people can make one decision in one election and then a different decision a year later when it turns out that the candidate hasn't delivered Or even in the case of Trump, that his supporters think, no, he's listening to those Washington people. He's not listening to us. So if we elect an independent voice in the form of a Democrat to put a check on him, it'll also put a check on those Republicans who aren't standing up and saying, wait a second, let's make sure this budget takes care of working people. So I'm really proud not only that we made these calls, but that we're winning purple elections across the country because we're being respectful of the voters and, yes, trying to revive our Democratic base, but also trying to coordinate and organize a coalition of Democrats, independents, and fed up Republicans to come together to try to win together, to save our healthcare, to lower costs, to cancel out those tariffs, and to bring back a balance in government. So thank you all for everything you've done, everything that we've done together, and let's keep working for a Democratic future.
Fantastic. I want to thank you because you need to know that the partnership that the Grassroots Democrats HQ has with Team Pelosi is something that we cannot imagine working without. It has been the piece of the puzzle that the Grassroots Democrats needed in order to go to a whole nother level of work that we are continuing to do. And what we're going to do between now and when we get further into the next part of the selection is we'll be working on Save Our Healthcare. We'll be talking about that later, but thank you so much, Christine, for being with us, for partnering with us, and for Team Pelosi believing in us.
Always. Thank you.
Moving on to the next part of the program. Davis, if you want to bring it back up, and then Justin, if you want to jump in with me. We were just talking about what we did. Wait, go back for 1 second. Improp 50. I just want to finish off by saying, in addition to the phone banking, the calls, the door knocking, there was an incredible campus-wide program. Just remember these numbers, which was 7,000 campus contacts and 1,004 campus commit to votes. When we get to our youth programming later, we're going to talk a little more. Go on to the next slide. I want to just tell you what you're talking about here is the virtual phone banking. And we literally jumped head in. We told you the story. We started off in Wisconsin. We took on that because we knew that we were going to be there. We thought that the most important two elections were going to be Wisconsin and New Jersey governor. We then took on Prop 50. Never anticipated that. We dug deep, really deep. When we were done, I want to be honest with you, people were contacting me, and they were contacting Justin, they were contacting Melissa Grant and my board, and they were saying, we got to go into this Afton-Bain race. Tennessee, we're like, are you crazy? There's no possibility. Not only that, we're exhausted. We can't do another thing. And it came to us last Tuesday when I was flying and going to Boston for Thanksgiving. Someone called me and said, Tamara, can you join a Zoom on Wednesday with Representative Raskin, with Jamie Raskin? I'm like, no, I can't. I'm going to be cooking for Thanksgiving. Oh, please, Tamara, can you join? Grassroots Democrats HQ should really be represented. I said, no. Then on Wednesday, Pamela McAfee, if you were on any of our Zooms, you will know that she is one of our leading, amazing virtual phone bank leaders. She calls me and she says, Tamara, I'm going to be doing volunteer phone banking for the Afton-Bain's campaign. I'm gonna volunteer and lead some of their phone banks. And I'm like, okay, if you're already gonna do that, why don't we get the Grassroots Democrats HQ to join in? I got on a phone with their field director, and we learned that they had been doing phone banks on Google Meets. Can you imagine 50 or 60 people on a Google Meet? That's impossible. How can you possibly do that? And how can you grow it? So we said, sure, we're gonna jump in. And we did. And we did it in a huge way. And what you see here is that we grew it so that we were doing Zooms that were 100 people on Friday, 100 people on Saturday. We then had Speaker Emerita Pelosi joining us, 150 people on Sunday nights. And then on Monday, we had another, Jessica Craven joined us. And we had over 215 volunteers. And then we just kept going from there. David Hogg joined us today. John Bowser-Baumann joined us, and the volunteerism grew. But what was more beautiful than ever about what happened in the campaign that we worked on in Tennessee, we've already won in my mind because what we did is we came together. And it's not just exemplified in what you're hearing about in terms of the voters coming out. The unity that took place by the volunteers that worked together was incredible. We took a team of volunteers. We opened up that Zoom room and we said, who here is a Zoom leader in another area? And you know what happened? We ended up combining the Grassroots Democrats HQ team leaders with 4 other grassroots groups that have never before come together to be leading Zooms together. And that was how we managed all those volunteers that you just heard me talk about. It's a beautiful story. It's an example of what we're going to roll into in 2026. We will win when we work together. Moving on, Davis. This is a great picture. And I want you to feel what this picture is. These are volunteers coming together with leadership. We had Women's March Action working with us. We had members of Congress coming out. We had Representative Crockett. We had the Los Angeles County Democratic Party chair here working with us. And we had the, what is this group? South Asian for South Asians for America was an incredible group of people working on Prop 50. Moving on. We have more. This is what we're going to talk to you about. Healthcare. Tell us a little bit about what those healthcare phone banks are.
So since the summer, we have been working on calling voters in districts in California where they have a Republican member of Congress who voted against their health care. Before the big, beautiful bill, we were doing it with Labor, with Team Pelosi, with the California Democratic Party. After the bill passed, we've continued those efforts with our wonderful partners at Team Pelosi, where we've been making calls every single Thursday into California 22, calling voters in that district, talking to them about the issue of healthcare, how David Valadeo's vote to cut their healthcare has affected them, if they have a personal story, and then patching them through directly to David Valadeo's office line to share that story and let him know and let his staff know that they're upset and that he needs to keep his hands off their healthcare. So we're doing those every single Thursday. We're continuing on with that effort with Team Pelosi, and we will drop those links in the chat towards the end of this program so we can get you to sign up. And that is going to be such important work to keep doing that work, to be priming those voters as we move into 2026 about the issues that matter. So when we get to November, they know what's at stake.
The next slide, Davis. What I want you to see here is that continuous group of virtual phone banking, virtual phone banking, virtual phone banking, virtual phone banking, door knocking, door knocking, door knocking. Next. The youth organizing. This is the backbone and something that is a pillar cornerstone of the Grassroots Democrats HQ. Next slide. We have what's called the Organizing for Democracy program. This was an incredible idea that came up back in 2021 when we realized that in order to have young adults stay active in the programming that we were doing and to have a representative sample of young adults that are working with us, we needed to do more than just give them volunteer opportunities. We had to provide paid opportunities. We had to provide training opportunities. For those of you that have heard of Democracy Summers, I need to tell you that Justin Kelly came to us through the program that he was working on in Mike Levin's campaign with Jamie Raskin for the Democracy Summer program. The Grassroots Democrats HQ had the idea of doing year-round organizing. We are an evergreen organization. We never stop. So we have the Organize for Democracy program that happens year-round for young adults. Do you want to explain what it was that we did differently this cycle than we've done since we started in 2021?
So in 2025, we did 3 cohorts. We did the first cohort in the winter. We had about 30 students that we hired for a 6-week program. Like I mentioned, we hire them to do a training program. They get paid to learn, come to a Zoom every single week, learn all aspects of campaign organizing, and learn the skills that you need to really become an organizer. And then between those Zooms, they get to volunteer with the campaigns we connect them with. They call young voters in whichever targeted campaign we work on so they can actually put those organizing skills into practice. So we did a cohort for the Wisconsin Supreme Court race to help elect Judge Susan Crawford. And then we did, instead of one, we usually only do one cohort for the off-year elections for Virginia, but because the Virginia elections were so important this year, we decided to invest in 2 of those cohorts. So we hired 50 students in the summer, 50 students in the fall. Overall, in 2025, our Organize for Democracy program, we were able to train 149 young organizers across the state, across the country, coming from 18 different states. 68% of those students come from communities of color. I believe over 50% identify as LGBTQ+, and those students, through their volunteer active action, were able to make over 323,000 phone calls to young voters in all those different races and help us win up and down the ballot in Wisconsin and Virginia.
Next slide. This is the campus organizing program. It was stellar. It was astounding. And it was something that is an example of what we're going to keep building upon. 13 college campuses, because of the work that we did in conjunction with the California
College Democrats.
The California College Democrats. The actual chair of the California College Democrats turned out to be somebody who was one of our paid canvassers the year before. And when we contacted Jack and said, "What are you doing? We heard that you are organizing a program," he was like, "Yes, but what do you mean?" Because he needed a team of people that could come behind him and work with him and develop what we had. What you see here are students that were doing incredible programming. And if you look really closely and you see the bear on the UCLA campus in the upper left-hand corner, I do just have to tell you, that is now our digital director, Daniela Mayock. She was so creative. She got into that bear. She walked around the campus, and she made sure that people got out and vote. Go ahead to the next one. The Organize for Democracy program is what Justin just talked about. Here are pictures of those incredible students working tirelessly. Next. Looking ahead to 2026, I'm now going to turn this over to an incredible organizer, Davis Hahn. He's actually one of the he is one of the co-founders of the Grassroots Democrats HQ. I had the honor of working with him as a organizer in 2018. He then stayed on and became our field director, and he is now on our board as our senior strategist. Davis Hahn, turning it over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Tamara, and thank you so much to all of you, not just for joining us tonight, but for all of the tireless work that you put in throughout this entire reason. You are the reason that we had, or this entire year, you are the reason that we have hope going forward about the future of our country, despite the unprecedented challenges that we faced over the past 12 months. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, I've seen a lot of you following very closely in the chat the election results out of Tennessee. And I'm hoping that even if we don't come out victorious in that race tonight, I'm hoping to, with these next few slides, contextualize the results that we are seeing there, because there's a lot to be really, really hopeful about as we look ahead to the 2026 midterms. So you heard a lot about 3 of the 4 major statewide races that occurred in 2025 already tonight. Of course, California, Virginia, Wisconsin. There's also a gubernatorial race, as I'm sure you were all aware, in New Jersey, in which Mikey Sherrill was elected the state's first female Democratic governor, which we are, of course, so excited about. There was one consistent trend in each of these races, and that was that we saw a massive shift from the final margin in the presidential race in 2024 to the final margin statewide in those races this year, anywhere from 8 to 11 points towards the Democratic candidate, towards the Democratic aligned ballot measure, towards the Democratic aligned candidate in the case of Wisconsin. And what this averaged out to was a swing of about 9.45% towards the Democrats across these 4 states. Just a bit of context again on the results in Tennessee tonight. The New York Times is currently projecting about a 7-point win for the Republicans. That would be a 15 percent point swing to the left from 2024 when Donald Trump carried that district by 22 points. So keep that in mind as you're seeing the next few slides that I'm going to talk about, that, you know, this is a tremendous groundswell of support in favor of the Democrats and away from Donald Trump and away from MAGA extremism that we're seeing across the country. A quick caveat, which is that, of course, off-year elections are not always predictive of what is going to happen in the general election of a major election cycle. Obviously, Democrats performed pretty well in 2023 off-year elections, and then 2024 didn't go as we had hoped. That being said, they tend to be more predictive of midterm elections because midterm election electorates look more like off-year electorates than presidential year electorates do. And we can be honest about this. Democrats are now the party that benefits when an electorate is more highly engaged voters, highly informed voters who make it to the polls every single cycle. Republicans used to fare better in those elections. Ever since Donald Trump's rise to power, the script is flipped. Democrats now tend to perform better in those lower turnout elections. That gives us a bit of an advantage in these off-year races. It certainly gives us an advantage in the midterms in 2026. So I do think there are some tea leaves we can be reading into from these results. So what would a 9.45 percentage point swing towards the Democrats look like at the national level in 2026? Well, if you took the results of every House race in 2024 or in a state that has since redrawn their maps, took the presidential result and swung it 9.45 points to the left, this is what that would look like. It would look like Democrats winning to around 231 House seats, a very solid majority. We currently are in the minority. Of course, we have 213 seats right now. It looks like that will stay the same after tonight. After last November, it was 220 to 215 in favor of the Republicans. For context, after 2018, we saw a similar swing from 2016, about 9 points towards the Democrats. And we had a 235 to 200 majority after that election. So if we see the same kind of swing that we saw in 2025 and 2026, Democrats would have a comparable, very sizable, very durable majority in the House, just like we did after 2018. But what about the Senate? If you listen to the punditry class, they've all been saying, well, Democrats are definitely favored to win the House in 2026. That's just how the laws of gravity in American politics work. But if you look at the Senate map, the Senate's not in play. It's just too tough of a map. There aren't enough opportunities for Democrats to flip seats. And that's reflected in this map that's on your screen now. This is the consensus map among election forecasters. And they would tell you that there are only 4 toss-up races in 2026. That would be Georgia and Michigan. Those are 2 seats we're defending, an open seat in Michigan and John Ossoff's seat in Georgia. And then North Carolina and Maine. North Carolina, an open seat that Tom Tillis is vacating. We have a very strong Democratic candidate there in Roy Cooper, the former governor, who I would say is even in a neutral political environment would be a favorite to win because he was very popular there as governor. And then, of course, in Maine, where Susan Collins has defied the odds in one election in a pretty blue state time and again, but her approval ratings are now lower than they've ever been. So again, even in 2024-like conditions, we would expect that she would have a tough battle to get reelected. But this map reflects 2024 conditions. I don't think that these forecasters have updated their priors to reflect the current political climate in this country. What would this map look like if you saw a 9.5% swing towards the Democrats? Well, I think you would see that Georgia, North Carolina, Maine, Michigan, all of those seats would be Democratic victories, most likely. And in fact, the toss-ups would be Texas, where John Cornyn is the incumbent. He has a tough primary challenge from Ken Paxton, who's the current attorney general and is so corrupt and so controversial, he was actually impeached by members of his own party in Texas. And polls have shown that if he is the Republican nominee, and he's currently the favorite to be the Republican nominee, that he would enter the general election trailing the Democratic candidate, whether that's Colin Allred or James Tallarico. Nebraska, we don't have a Democrat there running. We have an independent, Tom Osborne, who's more aligned with Democrats than Republicans. He ran last year, almost knocked off Deb Fischer in a very close race. He's running again. Iowa, a state where Joni Ernst is retiring, it's an open seat. That makes it more competitive. It's also the state that has arguably been hit harder by Donald Trump's economic policies than any other state in the country. Their economy is in a pretty tough recession right now, largely because of Trump's tariffs. That is a state where polling has shown that will be very competitive. And also Ohio, where Sherrod Brown, former senator of multiple terms, who outran Kamala Harris by 8 points in 2024, lost a very narrow race in a very unfavorable climate, of course, for a Democratic candidate running on the same ballot as Trump. He's running again in 26, and he's got a really, really good chance, a better chance than pretty much any other Democrat would have, of flipping that seat back into our column. Those are really the races that I think would be the toss-ups if we see the same kind of swing next year that we saw this year. And now you're looking at a situation where Democrats would only need to win 2 of those seats, 2 of those 4 toss-up seats, to get to a 51-seat majority. So if we see this trend continue, the Senate and the House are both very much in play. Why is this happening? Well, historically, there are 2 key predictors of how a midterm election is going to play out. Number 1 is the president's job approval rating, and the other indicator is how voters feel about the economy. Well, Donald Trump's approval rating has pretty much been cratering over the past month, and I think the averages are actually giving him a bit of a bump that he might not deserve, because they include some polls like Rasmussen that are very favorable to him. If you look at the most recent Gallup poll, they have Trump's approval at basically the lowest point that it's been at any point other in his 2 terms combined, other than immediately after January 6th. And another key number is if you look at his approval on the economy, which of course that is the issue that, despite everything else, voters in his first term said, we don't like him personally. We don't like how corrupt he is. We don't like his healthcare policy. We think he's being too tough in some circumstances on immigration, but we think he's doing a good job on the economy. Was that merited? We know that it wasn't. We know that he inherited a very good economy from the Obama administration, but voters gave him credit for it. And that's why he got elected again last year, because they looked back on that economy fondly. And he entered office with a very positive approval rating on the economy. That is gone. His approval rating is really bad on the economy at this point, and the signs show that it's going to keep going down, given the direction that consumer confidence is going, that unemployment is going. Things could get worse for Trump and the Republicans from the polling standpoint, and that is a big reason why you are seeing this favorable environment for the Democrats. Of course, there's a wild card in all of this. Republicans are not they're not stupid when it comes to electoral politics, and they see the writing on the wall. They know they can't win on their record, so they have been engaged in a campaign to try and preemptively rig the midterms next year by engaging in unprecedented mid-decade redistricting to draw as many safe Republican seats as possible and try and take your ability to repudiate their agenda away from you. Thankfully, we've been fighting back. We passed Prop 50 in California. We just got a really great court ruling in state court in Utah based on state law, so it's not going to be able to be challenged to the Supreme Court. That gave Democrats another seat there. And so these are all the states on your screen that have already passed some sort of redistricting. And basically, the net result is a wash. Based on 2024 conditions, Republicans would net 3 seats. A best case scenario for Democrats is that they could actually gain 3 seats out of all of this. I think what will ultimately happen is somewhere in the middle, which means you're not going to see a big net change either way. Of course, there are more states. If you've been following the news today, you'll see that Indiana has been taking initial steps to pass a new map that would eliminate their 2 Democratic districts. It's unclear if they have the votes to do it. Similar in Florida, partisan gerrymandering is illegal there under state law. Ron DeSantis is going to try and get around that. They're looking at initial steps to try and redraw their maps. It's unclear if they're going to have the votes or if it's going to withstand the legal challenge. Democrats, though, in Virginia are ready to fight back against that. They are taking the steps they need to do to try and pass a map there that could counteract any Republican action in these states. And I think Democrats in Illinois and Maryland, if they absolutely have to, would ultimately get in the fight as well if it came to that. So what does all this mean heading into 2026? If you look at the generic ballot polling right now, it shows Democrats their lead is growing on the generic ballot. Right now, it's anywhere between 5 and 6 points. What did we win the generic ballot vote by in 2018? When we flipped all those seats and took back Congress by a wide margin, we won it by about 8 points. It's very plausible that we could see that kind of margin, perhaps even a bigger margin next year, because the political climate is very favorable for us. And unless, caveat on the redistricting, yes, the Supreme Court is hearing a case right now in which they are considering striking down Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. If they did that, Republicans could potentially redraw a bunch of House maps in the South and eliminate anywhere from 10 to 15 Democratic seats. It is very unlikely, though, that we're going to get a ruling on that in time for Republicans to do that for 2026. So ultimately, redistricting, the battle is probably going to be a wash, which means we have a great chance to win both the House and the Senate next year. But I'm going to reiterate what you heard from Tamara earlier. That is not a given. Just because the climate is favorable for us does not mean that those results are locked in. The climate was favorable for us all of this year, but the results didn't come about until we put in the work, until we hit the ground. We started talking to voters. We helped them connect the dots to how Republicans' agenda is making their lives worse and how going out and voting can make their lives better, because there are candidates on the Democratic side out there fighting for them, fighting for their best interests, fighting for our democracy, and fighting for our future. We have to keep putting in that work. We have to replicate all of the organizing, all the voter contact that we did in this past year in those 3 major elections in Wisconsin, in Virginia, and California, and do that across the country. And that is how we can maximize our victories across the board in 2026. That's how we can not just win the House and the Senate, but run up the score in some places that we normally wouldn't have a chance to do so. That's how you build a durable governing majority. That's how we effectively end the Trump presidency as we know it. And that's the work that we're going to be engaged in with you together over this next year. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Tamara to close this out for the evening, and then we'll have an opportunity for folks to ask questions if they have any.
Fantastic. Let me go ahead and, first of all, what I do want to say is, for those of you that are watching in the background, would you just give a little bit of an update? Because I want to make sure everybody's wondering. Go ahead, what is happening? Because the win, I need to say, we believe that we won because of the work we did and the margins that are taking place. But go ahead and give the update, because everybody's wondering where we are right now.
Yeah. So we're watching in the background as Davis was giving his presentation, the returns of the Tennessee 7 race. I know a lot of people are probably looking at different outlets. At least what we are seeing right now from AP is that 85% of the votes have been counted. Afton Bain is trailing by about 5 points, a little under 5 points. But regardless, look how close we got, guys.
Guys, it was a Trump 22. It was Tennessee. We didn't think we had a chance, and we're literally moving that needle and moving that needle and moving that needle. So I'm going to use that analogy a little bit here. I don't know if I'm going to get there, but I'm really going to try. And I don't want to make you have to sit on here. Sorry. I know it gets embarrassing when you just sit, right? You tell me that. So this is what I want to say. What we just heard tonight was an incredible story and a story arc of where we started with the year and where we're ending with the year. We are seeing that the momentum is going. We are seeing that we are tirelessly working. I am beyond proud of what the Grassroots Democrats HQ has done. And what I want to remind you of is what Davis just said. And as I'm speaking, I'm hoping that my team will keep dropping links into the chat, because I'm going to ask you to give. I'm going to ask you to give by volunteering, and I'm going to ask you to give by giving a little more money. Because why? The average swing for Democrats was 9.5% in the last election cycle. The swing that we're seeing taking place in Tennessee right now is unprecedented. The volunteerism, the organizing, the evergreen nature of the work we're doing is exponential. And we know that if we can replicate what we did in 2025, after, by the way, we're all going to take a vacation. On the 20th of December, we'll be closing the Grassroots Democrats HQ, and we will be reopening in January. On on January 5th, because we're going to rest, we're going to relax, and we're going to recuperate. And then we're going to come back in 2026 so we can take back the House, so we can take back the Senate, and we can replicate what we did in 2025. But we dug too deep in 2025. We dug too deep into that savings account. And Giving Tuesday was a day that normally I would be out there making a ton of phone calls. And I literally didn't do that because I was on Zooms all day long with a team of incredible people. And that's what I've been doing for the last week as well. So if you are moved by what you heard we did, if you are excited by the potential of engaging young adults, which we know the swing that took place in the election cycle was due incredibly to the young adult community as well. They came out, they voted, and they volunteered. We took activists that are taking to the streets that we have to continue to make sure that our voices are heard. And we need to take those same activists and get them activated into elections. We need to be making sure that the table issues, pocketbook issues, people's issues about the cost of food, the cost of housing, making sure that we have an environment that we can breathe in, making sure that we have access to health care that we need, because everybody deserves the right of having health care. And that starts at the ballot box. So I'm not planning on stopping.